All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 4th annual Bird City Military Show. We are the Colorado Military Historical Group, CMHG. We are living historians and reenactors from throughout the Front Range of Colorado. We have members from as far north as Cheyenne, Wyoming, Denver, Fort Collins, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, even a couple of members here in Kansas and New Mexico. What we're going to show you today is 250 years of United States and United States Army history. This is the 250th year or anniversary of the United States Army. Born, established on 14 June 1775. The Army predates the country by almost a year, over a year. Because King George, as we were fighting off his redcoats, would definitely not surrender, much less give independence to a bunch of militiamen. We needed a bona fide army. So if you've been into Building 5, we have 250 years of Army history. We're going to demonstrate the firearms technology, and you will be able to see uniforms and that textile technology over the years. So if we go back 250 years, 19 April, 1775. The shot heard around the world, Lexington and Concord. It was not fought by the Army. It was not fought by the Continental Army, which did not exist. We had militiamen, as Kurt is demonstrating. He is dressed in whatever he could come to the fight with. Typically hunting clothes, but really civilian clothes. Armament, he would come to the fight with whatever he could grab off of his mantle, out of the corner of his home. Here he has a .45 caliber flintlock Kentucky or Pennsylvania rifle. It is a musket, meaning it is loaded through the muzzle, the front end. This particular model is .45 caliber. That means the diameter of the bullet is .45 caliber. It is a flintlock, which is the method of ignition. At this point, as a militiaman, he is demonstrating how that .45 caliber rifled musket flintlock is loaded. He is going to load powder and then ball. And because this is a rifle, to get the full accuracy and range of that system, he has to slowly push the ball, the .45 caliber ball, in against that rifling. And so consequently, loading is very, very slow. Estimated rate of fire is 1 round every 2 to 3 minutes. But you'll notice, that is a hunting rifle, and at this time we are hunting redcoats. He is loaded. He is now priming the pan. And at his ready, he will engage that British or Hessian officer. .45 caliber. Again, a civil weapon. No bayonet. No steel. Grabbed out of their rifle or house and responded to, the regulars are coming, the regulars are coming. Now, as the militia got better formed, they needed to up-arm themselves, and instead of just rifles and Fowlers or shotguns, they would be armed with smooth-bore muskets. What Kurt has is a .75 caliber Committee of Safety musket. So the Committee of Safety was formed to kind of ad hoc equip our militiamen and our Continentals. This is a copy of the British Brown Bess musket, and it is very representative of that time. Now, being smoothbore, .75 caliber, that ball is 3/4 of an inch in diameter over an ounce of lead. But because it's smoothbore, that ball is actually about .7, so it's a lot smaller in diameter than the actual muzzle. Consequently, he could load it much faster, and what he is showing you in his right hand is a paper cartridge. So instead of flask and what have you to arm that or load that rifle, the militia and then the Continental Army had paper cartridges which contained the ball, the powder, as well as the priming powder. Because the projectile was smaller than the muzzle, loading and firing was faster than the rifle. Ideally, militia armed with muskets and Continental soldiers had a rate of fire of 3 shots per minute. 3 shots per minute. Still same ignition. The range of these smoothbore muskets was 50, maybe 100 yards. And so these formations would have to march against artillery to within 50 to 100 yards. And it was not uncommon for one side to say, you may shoot first. 50 yards. Flintlocks. Well, we beat those Brits, but they wouldn't say no. And so the War of 1812, we had to fight them again. But technology really did not change. We are still using flintlocks. We are still using smoothbore muskets, although rifled muskets were making an appearance, but they were not that common. But as we get into the 1800s, technology advances, improves. And instead of that flintlock firing system, by 1840, the percussion cap system becomes norm. Scott is dressed as a Civil War into Indian Wars soldier of the Union, and he is demonstrating the percussion cap technology. Some of you kids may have fired cap guns, and that is what it has, a little bit of fulminated mercury. And so instead of a flint and steel, it is a percussion cap. Now it is still a musket, meaning it's loaded through the front of that weapon. He is going to load powder and then ball. Now this is a 58 caliber Springfield 1860 rifle. And although it is 58 caliber, the mini ball is about 0.57 in diameter. Being smaller than the bore, he can load and fire 3 rounds per minute, thanks to, again, the undersize. But because of the mini ball design, when fired, it expands and engages the rifling and now has a range of out to 400 yards. Thanks to the percussion cap, it is much more reliable. But not as reliable as modern weapons. And notice the slight delay, the pop and the bang as the percussion cap ignites the propelling charge. But again, because of the mini ball, the range is extended to over 400 yards. And so that means our Union soldiers, the Confederate soldiers, as they close on each other, were under more effective rifle fire at longer ranges, longer distances. So casualty rates increased dramatically. By the end of the Civil War in 1865, firearms technology was already moving forward. We had breech loaders and we had metallic cartridges. What Scott is demonstrating by the change of his hat is now the Indian Wars. We took the Springfield 1860, modified it with a trap door to be able to fire the 4570 trapdoor cartridge. 45 caliber. The bullet itself was 405 grains. Sometimes we had 500 grain bullets. For a reference, 1 ounce was 472 grains. So that's a lot of lead going after our foes. It is a metallic cartridge. It is breech loaded, that is through the rear of the weapon. If you'll notice his equipment, his open top cartridge belt carries his ammunition in hoops, but still a single shot weapon. He will demonstrate rapid fire. Now picture this. This is the 1873 model, single trap door. This is the infantry long rifle version of that weapon. Custer's men were armed with a carbine short version. You have to fire, unload, and reload each shot. And so think of yourself as one of those troopers from the 7th Cavalry. Your foes are covering a lot of distance as you fire each single shot. And some of you will recognize that, holy moly, that's a Springfield. But Winchester already in 1873 had a lever action. But the Army did not trust its soldiers with rapid fire weapons, thinking if they have to load each shot, they will take careful aim. And unfortunately, we saw the results of that at the Battle of Greasy Grass. But technology marches on. By the end of the Indian Wars, going into the Spanish-American War, we had fully adopted metallic cartridges. We had now adopted bolt-action rifles. Bolt-action rifles and an internal magazine. Pretty standard, but there were variances around the world. In the United States, we chose to go with the M1896, or the Krag Jorgensen, 30-40 caliber, meaning the bullet was 30, as there were 0.3 inches in diameter. It weighed about 220 grains, so about half as much as we just saw, over 40 grains of black powder. The Krag itself was gate loaded from the side into the internal magazine, which took 5 rounds. At this time, Steve will demonstrate loading the Krag Jorgensen from its side loading gate. This was the primary arm used during the Spanish-American War. Notice Steve's outfit. It is more drab. It is not those colorful uniforms from the earlier 1800s. And now he will demonstrate the speed and rapid fire of the 30-40 Krag. Five shots, bolt action from the internal magazine on the Krag Jorgensen. And as impressive as that was not good enough. In the Spanish-American War, we fought the Spanish, the Cubans, the Filipinos. And most of them were armed with a similar technology in the Mauser. Still bolt action, fed from a stripper clip. Now instead of a round-nosed 220 grain bullet, that Mauser fired a Spitzer. It was better than our Krag. And so once we defeated the Spanish in the Spanish-American War, we quickly stole that design from Mauser and adopted it into the Springfield, 1903. The action is very, very similar to that Mauser, so much so that we were found in violation of patent rights, and we had to pay something along the lines of $6 million to Germany for patent infringement, even through World War I. Now the Springfield, 1903, was our primary weapon from 1903 up until World War II. We could not make enough of them, and so we adapted the British Enfield Model P14 into the American Enfield, or M1917. Instead of the British .303 round, we adapted it to fire the good old American .30-06, and which mirrored the Mauser pointed bullet. This could also fire from a 5-round stripper clip, which was much faster loading than the side loading gate on the Krag. At this time, Lucas will demonstrate an M1917 strip-fed bolt-action rifle. A small piece of trivia, if you are familiar with Sergeant York, he loved the Springfield, but as he captured 200 German soldiers by himself, he was armed with an M1917. 5 shots as quick as he could reload and work the action. And so while the rate of fire was about the same as the Krag, that stripper clip increased its rate of fire because it was easier and faster to reload. Those bolt actions were pretty much standard, even into World War II. As World War II is approaching, the United States Army takes technological leaps forward and adopts the world's first semi-automatic main battle rifle in the United States Rifle 30 caliber M1, also known as the Garand. Now it's semi-automatic. It is still firing that M1 or M2 30 caliber ball, but it's firing from an 8-round end block clip. The big difference is that it is semi-automatic. So as Paul demonstrates loading this weapon, he will then demonstrate the rate of fire of a semi-automatic rifle. Quite a dramatic increase in rate of fire. In fact, there were documented instances of German POWs when they were captured. They thought they were up against machine gun battalions because every American squad of 12 soldiers had at least 10 M1 Garands. Those other 2 weapons in that squad might include a carbine or one of those O3s to launch grenades. And the last weapon was what Paul is demonstrating here, the M1918 Browning automatic rifle, the BAR. This fired the same 30-06 or M1, M2 30 caliber ball from a 20-round magazine. But the big step forward is that this was a squad automatic weapon. Think of it as a machine gun at the squad level. 20 rounds inserted and fed by a magazine. And this would form the base of fire for a squad. The BAR gunner, demonstrated here, with 2 assistant gunners, would lay a base of fire while from the squad. Now notice the designation, the M1918 was adopted by the Army in World War I. And it actually served into World War II, Korea, and by Vietnam, we were even giving them to our allies. Typical World War II weapons, the M1 Garand and the M1918 BAR. Well, time and technology march on. We won World War II, we tied in Korea, and now we adopt the NATO standard 7.62 millimeter round, also known as commercially the .308 Winchester. This is the M14 main battle rifle. Mark is demonstrating and showing the 20-round magazine in a Cold War uniform from the mid-1950s. That's a lot of gun. Due to technological advancements, the cartridge is a little shorter than the 30-06, but it had basically the same performance. The M1 Garand was an awesome system, and it was modified into the M14 demonstrated here. The M14, 7.62 millimeter main battle rifle. Again, that's a lot of gun. Over 1,000-yard range. It was adopted in 1957. And as we enter conflict in the Southeast Asian theater, that becomes too much gun. That weapon is too long, that bullet is too heavy, it's only a 20-round magazine. And so, by early 1960s, we adopted the M16. It goes through several variations. What you see now is Kyle in a mid-Vietnam War uniform, armed with an M16A1. Some cosmetic differences, but it is firing now, instead of that 150 grain bullet, it is firing a 55 grain, 5.56 millimeter bullet. It is much faster at about 3,200 feet per second. Originally equipped with a 20 round magazine, by 1967, when the M16A1 is adopted, 30 round magazines will become very standard. The M16A1. Higher rate of fire, smaller caliber weapon, easier to control, with the drawback that the distances and ranges are dramatically decreased. It would be very hard pressed to put effective fire past 500 to 600 yards. Great weapon system. After initial teething pains in the 1960s, we adopted the M16A1, and by the mid-1980s, we adapted into the M16A2. We are now facing, instead of a Viet Cong and North Vietnamese enemy, the Cold War enemy of the Soviet Union. In response to a perceived threat coming through the Fulda Gap in Germany, where we expect tanks and a lot of light armored vehicles, we adopt a new M16 round designated M855. Instead of 55 grains, this new round is 62 grains, but it has a steel penetrator designed to pierce light armor vehicles. The M16A2 that Lincoln is demonstrating in his Desert Storm camouflage of 1990 was a huge improvement over the M16A1, but its firing characteristics were still very much the same. Notice he is firing on semi-automatic. Every trigger pull results in one shot fired. The M16A1 could go full auto, but by the M16A2, the Army adopted a 3-round burst. The idea is as 3 rounds came out, you could keep more rounds on target. The final of 5 generations of M16 manifested itself in the mid-2000s as the M16A4 and the M4 carbine. Still very much the same design, but with some minor improvements. Dressed in Operation Enduring Freedom, OEF camouflage from about 2010, I'm going to demonstrate the M4. Not much difference from the M16, except now we are firing M855A1 ammunition. Instead of the green-tipped steel penetrator over lead core, we're environmentally friendly, and the M855A1 is an all-copper round. The M4 carbine. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just demonstrated 250 years of Army technology in both weapons, equipment, and uniforms. We've come a long way, as you have. We thank you for your attention. This is the Colorado Military Historical Group. Thank you very much, and God bless America. If you would like your kids to recover brass, as a souvenir, please have at it. Just let us check it before you move out to make sure that they're clear. Thank you.